Hello and welcome to a video that we're discussing today about rowing technique in particular and how it relates to shoulder pain. Alright, so let's get into it so I don't make this video too long. Shoulder injuries, very common types of injuries. Rotator cuff tears, probably the most ones we see from sports, but not limited to arthritis of the shoulder. Shoulder impingement, another big one. Chronic shoulder instability, bicep tendon tears, and various fractures, dislocations, all those sort of things. I myself have suffered on my left side few AC joint problems, and on my right side shoulder impingement and rotator cuff tears. So I know very much about the difficulty of shoulder pain myself, and a lot of the stuff I'm going to show in here will be things that I've tried and tested and things that ruined me and helped me. Now, one of the first things we're told when we have a shoulder problem is start doing heaps of rows, rowing exercises. Just do more and more scapular retraction. But where did all this come from? Why are we told this? So, a lot of people and therapists still have the belief that it's playing a big role in promoting good posture. So, traditionally we've been told pull your shoulders back, stand up straight, all that sort of stuff. Standing up straight is a good cue, but pulling your shoulders back is a terrible idea. If you want to create a shoulder problem, that'd be exactly what you want to do. Muscle imbalance, like in part of it has a role to play, but as you'll see, if you overdo it, then you actually create more problems than you were trying to solve. So when there's an imbalance at the front of the body, being the pecs and all the muscles that we see in the mirror, and people tend to in the gym overdevelop them, and they do become tight and they pull you into the hunch, and they create like an anterior tilt of the shoulder. So people have the logical assumption that, well, if I just tighten the other end up and start stretching my pecs, it'll all work itself out. And sometimes that may be as simple as that, but often it's not. And I don't know how many times I've heard this, and I used to say it myself, is there should be a 3-to-1 ratio of pulling to pushing, meaning 3 times as many exercises of pulling than what you do with pushing. And you would think that would be a good idea, but with the back muscles traditionally being weak, in hunch positions from sitting all day and all that sort of stuff. But it's not quite as simple as that, as I'm going to show you. So rowing, well, the theory is that it's going to tighten up the back muscles, as you see in this picture here. This guy in a terrible position. This may have nothing to do with his shoulders, by the way. This could be everything to do with his hips, and he can't sit up straight, which then is the reason why he has to sit like that. So all of this is going to get beat up, but it could have been coming from here. And in this picture, that's exactly probably what it looks like. But this hunch position, people have this thing, well, he's long and weak here because they're all stretched out, and he's short and tight at the pecs. Now he's got a shoulder problem, right? So if we tighten up the back muscles, it should fix all of it up. But all that may do is just create, and being told pull your shoulders down, and depressing the shoulders, as we call. So tightening up the back muscles and too much depression does not address the problem that this person will definitely have if he does too much of this. And by having too much of the depression, he's going to not be able to get upward rotation of the scapula. Now the scapula plays a big role in this. So as you'll see, there's the 3 things that we've got to have for a healthy shoulder. You're going to have good thoracic extension. So if you can't extend your thoracic spine, well, you're never going to really get the other 2 in the first place. As you can see here, this guy's not extending his thoracic spine. So before he's even moved, he's already in the wrong place. All right, where the picture here, this guy's got good thoracic extension, standing up nice and tall. All right. Second thing is we need posterior tilt of the scapula. So that's where, again, seeing that in that hunch position here, he's got an anterior tilt, so it's tilting forwards instead of tilting posteriorly down. Alright, so that's the second thing you need. Now the last thing you need is the upward rotation of the shoulder. So as this guy's lifted this dumbbell up, his scapula is moved from being here and then moving out and around. So it sort of does this rotational pull on the serratus anterior, which is down here, is going to really help freeing that up. And that gives plenty of space for his shoulder to function as it's supposed to. Alright, but when you completely depress the shoulder, you'll see that instead of the scapular border being there, it's more like on a downward angle here. So his arm, to get to there, it'll find a way, but it'll just really get impingement problems through here because the scapula never moved because it was being held onto by these big thick rhomboids that you've been smashing with cable rows and various rowing exercises. All right, so just doing rowing exercises is going to create a problem of the upward rotation. All right, so really you're going to need to have all three of these things, and they need to be done in all different movements, but at the same time they're all intimately related. All right, so over retraction and smashing the adductors, the scapular adductors, the rhomboids, the mid traps, disrupts your shoulder mechanics. So you'll end up with a depressed shoulder that stops you that upward rotation, as we just showed you. So the key is you must learn how to actively upward rotate the shoulder while maintaining the initial position of a downwardly of the correct placement of the shoulders to start with, so the posterior tilt. All right, so too much rowing is not going to be your solution. Now, examples of rowing action. So obviously we've just discussed this is terrible. So he's in a terrible position here where he's got an anterior tilt to begin with and poor thoracic extension. This guy's got good thoracic extension. He's got a good posterior tilt. But I don't know this guy. This is a picture of stock photo, but the good thing that he's doing is he has his elbows away from his body. If his elbows were nice and tight like that, he'll be forcing his scapula into like a very much a vertical position, as we discussed before, as opposed to having it on that sort of angle, which is roughly, I think, about 30 to 45 degrees, I think. So by making sure you have your elbows out is always a good thing, and I would see this a lot, and I must admit I myself, by being hammered into me to depress your shoulder, keep your shoulders down, I'd found a way to depress them, and then I'd end up developing a shoulder problem from the thing that I was using to prevent one. All right, so that goes to show even someone like me with years of training experience can get corrupted by stuff that we hear all the time, hence the reason for this video. Other rowing exercises that I probably prefer are the bent over row. Again, and you can see here, if his elbows pass his body there, as on the last picture here, like his elbows weren't going past. Once they go past you, the shoulder juts forward, and then you create problems through here, where you're actually now starting in a good place, but you overdid it, adducted too much, and you create a faulty rhythm. And now, again, you create more problems than what you were originally trying to solve. So bent over rows usually prevent you from doing that, and plus it provides good thoracic extension, because you just can't do the exercises if you don't have it. A lot of the single ones are also great, because the two-arm one gets the scapular adductors working well, but again you can create a lot of problem there. Where these ones get the movement of the scapula as well, because this big, see how much his arm has to extend? This really gets that scapula moving, and when he pulls it through, you'll get that adduction in there. But I actually prefer the single arm ones, and cable ones are equally as good. Probably on a higher angle would be better than this one. That would get us more of a lower trap activation, which helps with the posterior tilt of the scapula. All right, so I'll give you some better examples in a minute of how to do these, but that's just some examples of like how different rowing action, if you have a sore shoulder, that these ones are probably better choices than the cabled ones with two arms. What about the muscles? Well, I've sort of mentioned one of them there, but to achieve the three things we need: a thoracic extension, posterior tilt, and upward rotation. Thoracic erectors, in your thoracic spine, they're the ones that are going to hold you upright. They really need to be trained to be stronger. Usually sitting for too long, too many abdominal crunches and things like that are going to create like problems there, and it becomes very stiff. When that becomes stiff, it's no point working on the shoulder if you've got a thoracic spine problem, all right? Because you can't even get in the right place to begin with. Breathing can be also upset that. Lower traps and serratus anterior are the two ones that are going to work with that work very much together with the posterior tilt and the upward rotation of the scapula. All right, but there's plenty of exercises you can find that isolate them, but isolating is a good start, but it's not very good at restoring the function, because you've got to teach them how to move. Just finding exercises to strengthen them in an isolated state is really not going to do much at all. All right, so here's a couple of mobility for thoracic. It's really going to need mobility, not so much the strength. A lot of people will free them up like this, and then they're loosened, but they're just not strong enough to hold it. So because they're so weak through their erectors, so We might use simple, very body weight exercises like this one to be able to do it. Just got to make sure that you don't stiffen back up again, so it's a constant going from extension, and also using different mobility drills in combination with the basic postural corrective exercises of resisting gravity to maintain the position. So I'll give you a quick video demonstration of that you can have a look at.
Here's a little pool noodle, something small, foam. If you don't have that, just roll up a towel. Then basically you just lie down on the floor, and you get this to sort of line up just underneath the scapulas, underneath the scapula or shoulder blades. Get your head to rest back on the floor, and your arms got to be in that sort of stop sign position. Very important to try and keep the back of the arms and the hands and the wrist on the floor there. So this in itself is a bit of a pec stretch for most people, and you'll see right there my left arm is sort of coming off the floor a little bit. If you look really carefully, you can sort of see there's just a little bit of a gap in there. I'm a bit tighter on that pec, so I need to stretch through there. The right side not so much, surprisingly, because it's my sore arm. And basically all you're doing is sort of like making a little, start out with a little diamond, and you just bring the arms back down and back to where they started this, and sliding, making sure you keep the back of the hands on the floor. And do that a couple of times. If that's okay and you can get the hands to touch, and you do a better job of keeping the elbow, the forearm, the wrist, the hand all on the floor, then you can move to the next stage, where when you rise your hands up above, you'll straighten the elbows out, so it'll go like in a perfectly extended position. And this one is a lot harder. A lot of people can't quite extend right up to there. Even myself, I find this a bit hard, and see my elbows are quite bent. But you know, I've still got the back of my hands on the floor, so, and usually I can hold myself there for 20-30 seconds, and it feels quite relieving, and it helps you with the extension of the spine.
Alright, so there's a quick example of some thoracic drills, and again there's stacks of them. Go to our YouTube channel and find heaps more of them. Second thing, the downward tilt of the scapula. Well, deadlifts are a great one as well. So when you're standing up, and plus it's really integrating the system. Out of all the exercises, to be honest, that are postural correct, this one would probably be the king. If you become good at these and you understand the good mechanics of things, grip strength becomes a big factor in this as well when you get really strong at it. This one can really achieve a lot of great things. Like I mentioned before, the cable ones are great, and the one I prefer is from the high cable. There's a quick video that I've got with this that you can sort of see. Again, the cable stuff brings into play where you can get the scapula really moving through. So you do, when it's on this high one, it sort of helps you to get that out of its depressed position, so it'll come through and it'll move up as your arm's extending out. Right, and then when you're pulling it back, obviously again in the adductors, and you can maintain that scapular placement and the rib cage placement, so you maintain that nice posterior tilt. You have to get the movement of the scapula at the same time. The single cable stuff is so great, right? So I really love those exercises for that.
Exercise here is just a single cable pull. It helps to sort of get the hips to free up at the same time, because now you're starting to integrate the legs into it. So these hips are sort of in a real extended position, so they're really opened up. So it helps me to get better mobility up above. When the hips are locked up, everything else is in the wrong place to begin with. All right, so that's the first thing. Second thing, like I've got like this lunge stance, so I'm activating the posterior sling. So I'm sort of working very much on that glute on that other side, lat and arm on this side. So I'm now getting a lot of core activation. But more importantly, I'm sort of, because this got a slight rotation to it, I'm really getting a lot of twisting through the thoracic spine because it's a single arm movement. All right, so let's have a look at how it goes. And there's two parts to this where I'll show you. The first one's just standing still, where you're just trying to keep everything stable around the lumbar spine and just moving the top half. So I really want to keep my belly button in, keep everything strong around here so it doesn't move, so only the top half moves. Once I've got the hang of that, then I can move into like what we call a weight shift, and you'll see me move, or I'll start to get a little bit more leg. See how I move forward into the left leg, push off the left leg, and then turn and twist even more, but I'm not twisting through my lower back, I'm twisting through my upper back, and my hips are doing a lot more motion. Instead of my hips standing still, they're now actually moving. So you can see how my leg, how it ends up pointing out here, and then when I come back into it, it'll see now when I'm there, see my hips are now pointing there. So I'm getting a lot more hip motion timed with the thoracic. So very, very good for sports, this one. But again, very good exercise to free a lot of things up and add the strength and stability at the same time. So this is where all the pieces that we pulled apart and put on the floor, put them all back together in one and try to make it work as a system. All right, so it's always important to come back to that because that's how it works in real life. All right.
Upward rotation of the, so the serratus anterior is the key here. So there's lots of ways we can do this. This is a good one. We're using a cable press, but some people with an impingement problem can't actually get their arm into this position, just too painful. I know that for myself, these ones were too hard. You need to use a little bit more simpler exercises. Little wall slide drills are awesome for doing that, teaching you to get your hands overhead and the scapular placement more or less, and how the shoulder blade or scapula sort of fans out as you move your arm up. So here's a very simple exercise you can try that'll show you how to do that.
Alright, here's a very simple drill that you can use to get activation of the lower trapezius muscle. Very important muscle for a healthy shoulder and neck function. This isn't an exercise, by the way, that will strengthen anything or do anything significant for you. It just helps you to activate it and make you become aware of how the movement in the shoulder needs to work, and what it feels like to actually activate this muscle. So mostly just line up against the wall, the arms just a bit above 90 degrees, and you just sort of open up in a V, like so, and then very slowly just slide those arms up above your head with the thumbs pointing back behind you, and then when you get to the top there, you just lift the hands away, and you just hold that there for a couple of seconds, come back to the wall, slide your hands back down. Alright, so you're basically trying to get, if you're not sure where lower trapezius is, it's sort of around about here, and it helps with that. When if I go back, when the arms are going right up, and I've got it away, it's sort of helping me to activate this area to keep the shoulders down and the scapula to move out, because usually it's not moving correctly, and you'll see people who have poor function that shoulders rise up instead of sort of lowering down as they should. Alright, so quite a simple drill.
Alright, so I hope you enjoyed that one. That gives you another idea. As I mentioned earlier, breathing is a big one. A lot of problems are created from poor breathing mechanics, so I won't go too much into this. You can find heaps of articles on our website about breathing and the importance of it, but really understand that you do need to know how to breathe with good diaphragm, belly breaths, and be able to create lumbar stiffness as well, because if you're not being able to do that, then it's moving around too much, creating thoracic stiffness. Alright, so which leads me to the next point, that you need to look at the whole body. Alright, so you can't just look at the shoulder, and you can't just look at these two bits here. Right, you're going to have to look at all of the bits underneath the body, because each joint sort of is going to play a role in creating problems up the chain or down the chain. Alright, so as I put here, find the leak. So you need to really look at all of these factors, because they could be the problem even though the pain is not in that area. Alright, so again, look at articles that we have as stability and mobility training to get an idea of all these different joints and how to work through them. You also need to learn how to move. So if you've got a problem at a movement level, which is your brain and your nervous system, there's no point working biomechanically with muscles, because you don't move like that. You're going to move with patterns of movement. So if there's a problem with any one of these patterns, there's a problem within the system somewhere, and you're going to compensate, and you're going to create more problems. Alright, so there's a free report you can get from our website that sort of gives you regressions of each one of these, so you can work your way through and learn how to do each one of these correctly. The process, well, really want to work with the simple stuff first. Identify flexibility, mobility problems. Mobility is probably a border between all to like stability, to be honest. But yeah, work through all that process of trying to get everything with eliminate possible flexibility problems, and then teach yourself to become more stable, move properly, and then eventually strengthen, and then build onto your power. Remember, thoracic spine's big key. So the extension of mobility of it all, the posterior tilt of the scapula with the upward rotation as your arm moves overhead. Don't forget the legs, and also stability in the torso, and I'll say it again, don't forget how to learn how to move properly, because that's where you're putting all of these things together at once. Alright. For more information, you'll find step-by-step programs on our website. Go to our online shop soon. We've got a report coming out that's going to detail a lot of the stuff we've gone over here in intricate detail to help you. We'll let you know when that's out. You can get your hands on our little black book, which has got 100 programs of different stuff, from core training, functional training, rehab, strength training, sports training, everything. Alright, so you'll find stacks of information about a lot of stuff I've spoken here on how to do it, and hopefully you can get rid of your shoulder pain. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed that video, and I'll see you on our next one.